Hey, what's up guys? Brad with Squared Away every day, and today we're going to be talking about a super nerdy and super awesome topic, which is night vision. Now in this particular video, I'm going to be hitting just kind of the surface on everything you would need to know just generally getting into night vision for those times when you need to get a snack in the middle of the night. Now this topic is not going to take over the channel entirely. I'm still doing tons of Tesla stuff and vehicle stuff in general, but about once a week, one of my 3 videos of the week is going to start to be something that I'm interested in other than vehicles. And for this particular series, we're going to be doing night vision. So this is your intro to night vision video, and we're going to be talking about it here in just 1 second. If you like this kind of content, please go ahead and give me a like, give me a sub, and let's hop into it. All right, this is such a nerdy topic. I'm so excited to talk about it. It is for true nerds when you get into the depths of night vision, and I'm just super excited to talk about it with you guys today. Now, when I tried to get into night vision, seriously, with Gen 3 night vision, there wasn't a lot of content on YouTube, just like an intro on like tubes and housing and thin filmed and green phosphor, white phosphor, FOM, SNR, just halos, all that kind of stuff. There wasn't an intro video, so that's what this is going to be here, and I'm super excited to talk about it. So the first 2 topics we're going to talk about, and it's going to be very brief because we're going to circle back around to the end, is dual tube versus mono tube. So that's the first one. And then the second one is going to be, what generation of night vision do you want to buy? So just very quickly here, dual tube versus night tube. Dual tube, or a binocular setup, is pretty much this, where you've got 2 tubes to look through. And there you go. This is a binocular or dual tube night vision setup. Then we have a monocular setup where there's just going to be 1 tube. You can put it over one eye or the other, and that's it. It's a single monocular tube, oftentimes referred to as a PVS 14. We will talk about the pros and cons of the bino versus the mono at the end and what I think you should get, but we have to cover some ground before we get to that point, so just hang in there with me. Now let's talk about the generation of night vision you should be picking up if you're actually going to be buying night vision to use. If you're just buying it to kind of look out on your porch at night just to like have fun and say you have night vision, okay, great, get whatever you want. But if you actually want to put night vision on and like move with it or drive with it or just do like crazy stuff with it, you're going to need to buy Generation 3 night vision. Now, I've owned Gen 1 night vision. I've owned Gen 2 night vision. Gen 1 really sucks. Don't buy Gen 1. Gen 2 pretty much sucks, and Gen 3 is very good. It's quite a bit better than the Gen 2 stuff. So save up your money, get a Generation 3 set of night vision, either a mono tube or a dual tube. We'll talk about that at the end, what I think you should get, and we'll just kind of go on from there. All right, so let's first start off with talking about tubes versus housing and what is the difference. Well, if we're talking about tubes specifically, the tube is the part of the night vision that amplifies ambient light. That's what the tube is. Now, tubes are going to have a wide variety of specifications to them. In the tube, the quality of the tube and the specs on that tube are going to determine how grainy it is at night. It's going to determine how well it pulls in ambient light and transfers it into visible light that is brighter. It's going to be how big of a ring or a halo there is, or a bloom effect when you actually cross, like let's say a street light at night. So there's a lot of different specifications on a tube, and we'll talk about that in a second here. And then when we talk about the housing literally houses the tube, okay? So you put the tube inside of the housing. What you're seeing here, what you see is just the housing. You don't see the tube. The tube is inside of this particular unit. And so the housing houses the tube. And what the housing does for you is it provides features and enhances the usability of the tube, which is amplifying the ambient light, if that makes sense. So just for a basic example of features, this is an articulating set of night vision. This goes up and down. And when these go up high enough, another feature is they automatically turn off. Okay, so those are features of this housing. And inside of this housing, we have our tubes. And again, the tubes will vary in their specifications to a wide degree, a very wide degree, even inside of Generation 3 night vision. So when we hear the term PVS 14, PVS 31s, DTNVS, DTNVGs, all of these different terms, they're specifically related to the housing. Now that housing may have tubes in it, but when we talk about PVS 31s or PVS 14s or DTNVS, they're specifically referring to the housing and what features that housing has in it. Okay, stay with me. Believe me, stay with me. We're getting somewhere. Okay, so now that we've actually talked about tubes versus housing, we've talked about the different generations, and we've just barely talked about dual tubes versus night tubes, we're gonna talk about white phosphor versus green phosphor. Now, this specifically is related to the tube spec, not the housing, so we're talking about tubes again. So inside the tubes, you have the option when you buy night vision to buy either green phosphor or white phosphor. Now, generally speaking, it's kind of generally accepted that white phosphor is the more premium between green phosphor and white phosphor. Green phosphor does not pick up ambient light any worse. It doesn't provide any additional night seeing capabilities. What it is it is a different hue from green to essentially like a whitish blue, which is the white phosphor. And so white phosphor is generally going to be a little bit more expensive than green, actually substantially more expensive than green phosphor. And really the benefit from white phosphor to green phosphor is white phosphor is going to have less fatigue on the eyes as compared to green phosphor that can strain your eyes and give you more fatigue in a shorter period of time. Okay, that's pretty much it. Green phosphor is cheaper and it will fatigue your eyes a little bit quicker. That's what most people say anyway. White phosphor will have less fatigue on the eyes. To me, it's got a better palette or tone to it. I just prefer the hue better. And it's going to be slightly more expensive, again, significantly more expensive to go from green phosphor to white phosphor. White phosphor being the premium tint or hue. Now, again, when you go to buy your tubes, it's going to say whatever the housing is, a PVS 14 or a PVS 31, whatever. But it's going to say white phosphor or green phosphor. And then right after that, it's going to say filmless or thin filmed. Okay, so now we're talking about filmless and thin filmed tubes specifically. Now, thin filmed tubes is kind of an older technology. When the Gen 3 night vision came out, thin filmed was kind of the standard. People were using thin filmed night vision. And then as time moved on, people figured out that not having a film on there would let more light come in. And so essentially what is going on between thin filmed and filmless, which filmless is considered to be the premium option. It's also going to be quite a bit more expensive. But what the benefit is with going with a filmless night vision is essentially you have a brighter set of night vision is what it is. And this is really going to be noticeable in very, very low lighting conditions. Now, if we have a IR or an infrared illuminator, boom, and it shoots it out, and IR essentially is just not visible to the naked eye, but you can get infrared flashlights. You can't see it with the naked eye, but you can see it with night vision. If I shined an IR flashlight and I had thin filmed versus filmless tubes, you wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference, but you would be able to tell a difference in very low light conditions. Let's say just like natural lighting and there's no moon out or anything like that. You would be able to tell the difference to about the tune of 10 to 20% when you jump up to that filmless option for your night vision, okay? Now, there's a little bit of a debate on, hey, thin filmed has a little bit of thin film that protects the night vision so that it performs longer for better. It has better performance over time compared to just a standard filmless. And I think these days, really the only benefit to thin filmed is that it's going to be cheaper. That's pretty much it. It's a cheaper way to get into night vision. The Filmless now has a coating on it that acts like a protectant as well to the night vision. And so in the same conditions, it's probably very similar from filmless to thin filmed in terms of how long they're going to perform under the same conditions. Now, all night vision is going to have a slight degradation over time the more that you use it, but it's not anything like significant, like you use it one time and the next time you use it, it's just crap. It doesn't work that way. So there's thin filmed versus filmless. Again, filmless is going to be the premium variant between the two, and it's about 10 to 20% brighter in extremely low light ambient conditions, low ambient light conditions. There we go. All right, now in the follow-up vid to this video, if you guys even like it, if nobody likes this stuff except me, I'll just make the videos for myself so that I can reference this information 6 months from now to where all my nerdy overactive studying is gone and I can just go back and reference this myself. But in follow-up videos, we're going to be talking specifically about the depths of tube specs. So that's going to be not just figure of merit or FOM, but we're going to be talking about signal to noise ratio. We're going to be talking about halo. We're going to be talking about photocathode sensitivity. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things inside of the tube specs and what to look for if you're really looking for a high quality set of tubes. But today we're just going to be scraping the surface, and so a really good data point on your tubes is going to be something called FOM, F-O-M, figure of merit. And figure of merit essentially is going to be a number that you can look at on your spec sheet that is going to tell you the quality or the performance of your tubes. We're still talking about tubes here. We haven't even jumped into the housing and the features of the housing that you want to look for. So when we talk about FOM or figure of merit, again, that's a really good number just to tell you how good that night vision is going to be. There's a lot of different specs like we talked about, signal to noise ratio, the EBI, the photocathode sensitivity. There's a bunch of different things that we'll talk about in a different video, but FOM is a really good way to just see what the quality is. So if we get a set of night vision that comes with a spec sheet, and you will get a spec sheet of your specific tubes. So that spec sheet will tell you specifically how each category tested and what it's rated at, okay? This is illegal to post online. You can't do spec sheets on the internet. You just can't do it. It's against the rules. I don't know why. And then you can do something called hand select. So certain dealers will do something called a hand select process, where if there's multiple units in stock, they will look through and see which ones have the best specs and they'll send you the best one. Typically, this is going to be a more expensive set of night vision that you're buying to get a hand select tube. And the really big distributors like Tactical Night Vision or TNVC.com, they will not do hand select in many cases because they just have so much volume going through. They don't have the time. Okay, so there's that. So figure of merit, what is it? Figure of merit is essentially going to mean if you get a rating of 1500 and below, that means that you have a very poor quality set of night vision. If you have a rating of 1500 to 2000, that is going to be an average performance or an average quality for night vision. If you have a FOM rating of 2000 to 2376, that is going to be considered a very good or above average performance grade or quality grade on your tubes. And if you have a FOM level of 2376 or above, that is going to be considered excellent. That is the best FOM rating that you can get. Obviously, the higher the better, and that's how FOM is generally going to look. So that's what FOM rating looks like. Let's continue on. Okay, so this is the part where we'll just quickly touch on monotubes versus binos and all that good stuff, because now we're going to talk about the housing of the tubes and what to look for with that. So when we're talking about binos, really a benefit for binos is going to be like if you have any sort of, I don't want to say high speed movements you're going to have, but essentially if you're moving quickly, like if you're running with night vision, or if you're on a boat, like going out to a fishing spot and you're doing night fishing, if you're driving a car under night vision, stuff like that, typically binos is going to be really the only way to go. People typically aren't going to be running a monotube for fishing or running or driving a vehicle or driving a boat, stuff like that. You're typically always going to want to have binos, and that's essentially because our primal instinct is kicking in, where one eye is essentially seeing dark and black, and it says, whoa, you're gonna like totally trash yourself walking around or moving around, stop. And the other eye is saying, no, bro, it's cool, like we can see and everything's okay. So you're getting these mixed signals. If you use night vision a lot, you can certainly get used to it, and you could drive a boat or a car or whatever under night vision with a mono tube. But if you don't a whole lot, generally the preference is gonna be to use a bino or a dual tube setup for your night vision driving or driving a boat or a car or anything like that. Now, if we're talking about a monocular, I don't know why I said that all weird, a monocular tube just goes over one eye. You pick whatever eye you want, and that's just one single unit. Now, the benefits of a monocular tube largely are going to be economics. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be much cheaper than a binocular set of night vision. And again, we want to go with Gen 3. Then you pick your white vision, or not white vision. Then you pick your white phosphor or green phosphor. Then you're going to pick your thin filmed or filmless. And then you get into the specs of the tube. How high of that FOM, or how high of FOM are you going to pay for in that tube? Okay, so now we're talking about the housing. So you can do a dual tube, right? Or you can do a mono. And dual tubes also called binoculars, or you can do a mono. So a mono, largely, when people are talking about monocular night vision, you're talking about a PVS-14 is what that's going to be. So with PVS-14s and monocular night vision, the benefit is going to be that they're cheaper. They're just a cheaper way to get into night vision. That's really going to be the biggest thing with monocular, why you'd go with it, versus a dual tube is just pure economics. That's pretty much it. So PVS-14s are cool because, generally speaking, PVS-14s are going to have a diopter adjustment, which means that you can adjust to your eye what this is going to look like. And then you've got an objective adjuster too to actually focus for near and far objects. Okay, so we've got that, which is very cool on PVS-14s. A lot of times on PVS-14s, most time, you should not buy a PVS-14 if you don't have something called gain adjustment. Gain adjustment is so important on a PVS-14 for this one specific reason. If we don't have any gain adjustment, and gain adjustment specifically means we can adjust the brightness on the tube, like literally how bright it's going to be in correlation to our eye, we can adjust that. If we don't have gain adjustment on a PVS-14, the problem, or a monocular tube, the problem is going to be, we've got it, let's just say on one eye, I'm right eye dominant, I'm right eye dominant. And so I've got it on one eye right now, and if it's so bright that it's even splashing onto this eye a little bit, it's going to be super hard for this eye that's just looking off of just natural night vision, not this, just natural night vision. I'm trying to just see the ambient light in the world or in the room or whatever. It's going to be really hard for me to even have any sort of natural night vision if the single monocular tube is super bright. So what we want to be able to do is turn down the gain so that it's not super bright, and we can actually kind of level out the brightness levels to our eyes so that we still have a really good like situational awareness. You can see where you're walking still with your modified night vision eye, which is your natural night vision, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But gain control is super important for PVS-14s. Do not buy one if it doesn't have gain on it. And then, of course, they're going to have just like basic features like the diopter adjustment, the objective lens and stuff like that. So that's that on the PVS-14s. And again, some people say that the PVS-14 has a benefit to going with like a binocular set of tubes, because you can do that, because you can be seeing with one eye night vision, right? And it's like enhanced night vision. And then your other eye sees just like natural world and what everything else is supposed to look like. And so some people say monotubes are superior for that reason, that you get more situational awareness of natural lighting conditions, and you're not going to be like lulled into thinking like, oh, like I'm the only one that can see at night. Okay, now I think this is really just kind of a non-issue. Again, the only benefit to getting monocular night vision is going to be the price, because simply if we go to, let's say like this is a DT-NVS set of night vision, if we go to this has something called articulating arms on it. So it's an articulating set of night vision, or an articulating bridge essentially is what it is. And so what that means is when I'm under night vision, I can pull one of these up and I can do the same thing that I would with a mono tube or a PVS-14, where I've got natural lighting conditions with this eye, and then I've got enhanced night vision with this eye, and that's freaking awesome. Okay, so very cool. Different things that you're going to have with a Bino set of night vision or a dual tube setup is going to be stuff like that. You can have an articulating bridge, so you can move these suckers up and down. You can have a fixed bridge as well, to where it's just, they don't move up and down, but you've got some little adjustments to kind of adjust it to your eyes. And we're just talking about features here of the housing. You can have a infrared illuminator on your binocular set of night vision, so it's just built in and you can turn it on and you can see a little bit better, like an internal flashlight with infrared light. You can, again, except for PVS-31s, you're going to want to go ahead and have the diopter adjustment in the rear. You're going to want to have the objective adjustment for focusing near and far. Those are features, again, of the housing. Other features that you're going to have are going to be something to where, let's say I do fold up my night vision out of the way and both of these tubes are going to turn off. That's another feature. Or let's say I flip my night vision up and that is going to turn the night vision off as well. So just another feature of the housing. So the housing has many, many different features. I think the key features that you need on a PVS-14 in the housing obviously is going to be your diopter adjustment, your objective adjustment, and then your gain control, super important. And then when we're talking about binos, this is a personal preference for me specifically. I like having an articulating bridge so that I can run them as a mono if I want to, or I can just put them up like this, or I can put them up out of the way, or however I want to run that particular set of night vision. So we can throw these here on the helmet. This would be much easier to just show you what's going on here, and I can just kind of toss this guy on. So when I put this on, again, you kind of get the idea. So I've got the night vision on. We're going to go ahead and so now it's on. Boom, they would turn off in this position. If I could even roll them up, they're going to turn off in this position. Since they are articulating night vision and I can pull them to the rear like this, the weight hanging off of this helmet is going to be less. And you don't have to do helmet. You can do caps, you can do a lanyard with like a PVS-14, you can do a lanyard with binos too. So it really just depends on what you're doing. Are you doing night astronomy? Are you doing night fishing? Are you doing night hunting? Are you doing more military applications? What are you using the night vision for? I don't know. I have no idea what you're using the night vision for, so it's kind of up to you. But just generally speaking, you'll have to decide what features you need in your housing to determine what's going to be important for you. And so that's pretty much it, guys. In closing, we talked about in this video, and I will have, if you guys like this kind of stuff, if people enjoyed this content, I will have a follow-up video on different ways to mount your night vision, whether it's going to be a lanyard or a bump helmet or a ballistic helmet or a scrum cap. We can talk about that. We can talk about specifics on your tube, like your halo, your EBI, your photocathode sensitivity, your SNR, signal to noise ratio. We can talk about that stuff too. That would be an interesting video to me specifically. And then we can talk about different housing types too, and the pros and cons of those, like PVS-31s versus DTMBS versus PVS-31 deltas. We can talk about whatever you want. There's so much stuff other than what we just scraped the surface on here. I'm happy to talk about it because I've done the research. I'm probably going to make the videos anyway, just so that I can go back and reference this information. Because again, in 6 months, I'm going to forget all this stuff and I'm going to know like 1/10 of what I know now, essentially. So what we covered in this video was we want to go with Gen 3 night vision, mono versus dual tube. That really just comes down to finances, or if you're just doing like photos and stuff like that, fine, you can go with a single tube. That's all you're going to need. But other than that, it comes down to finances. And we also talked about the tubes versus housing thing in general. We talked about white phosphor versus green phosphor. We talked about the FOM ratings. We talked about thin film versus filmless. And then we also talked about just some general features that you would run into in a PVS-14 setup or a Bino setup. And that's pretty much it. There's so much more to talk about. Night vision is so extremely nerdy. It's the nerdiest coolest thing that you could be into. It's one of the only superpowers you could buy. How awesome is that? So when you need to get those snacks at night or cook hot wings at midnight in dead darkness, you can certainly do it like I do. So if you like this kind of content, please go ahead and give me a like, give me a sub, and we'll see you in the next one.